إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. Dear brothers and sisters, this is the refutation of the lecture of Mohammad Yasir from the Hanafi Fiqh channel. His first lecture about the true creed of the Salaf. His first part, the introduction. So this lecture is going to be only a refutation of the first lecture, and inshallah, hope inshallah after to refute his other lectures. So unfortunately, brother Mohammad Yasir, in his first lecture regarding the true creed of the Salaf, he accused the Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah and his student Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim of having anthropomorphist views, meaning tajseem. But unfortunately, he didn't quote their full course, and this is not the proper way of the scholars with proper amana ilmiya, because first you should quote someone fully, and then you should refute him. This is the way of the scholars. And also in his lecture, he said that the true creed of the Salaf was the creed of Tafweed, and it's only Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim and his teacher, Shaykh al-Islam Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah, who falsely interpreted the creed of the Salaf and said that we should take the attributes upon their apparent meaning, while the creed of Tafweed, it is that we leave only Allah knows the meaning. We don't know the meaning of Allah's hand, Allah's foot, Allah's ulu, and other attributes of Allah. So basically, these 2 points were the main points of his lectures. First, he tried to claim that the creed of the Salaf was a Tafweed, and then he attributed some claims to Shaykh al-Islam, Ibn Taymiyyah and others, Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim and Shaykh ibn Usaymin and others. So inshallah, in this first lecture, I'm going to refute these 2 main claims. First, showing what the creed of the Salaf was from their own books, so you can see for yourself if their creed was the creed of Tafweed, meaning we don't know the meaning of it, only Allah knows, and we don't believe in the apparent meaning, or it was the creed of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah or the creed of his student. But unfortunately, Muhammad Yasir did not follow the way of the elder Hanafi scholars, like Sheikh, the Imam of his time, Allama Badruddin al-Aini, the author of Umdatul Qari Sharh Sahih Bukhari, who interpreted Sahih Bukhari. And he defended Shaykh al-Islam Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah and freed him from all these allegations of tajseem. And Ibn Nasir al-Dimashqi gathered Hafiz Badruddin al-Aini's defense of Ibn Taymiyyah in his book Arad al-Wafir. So, and as well, Mullah Ali al-Qari defended Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah and freed him from the creed of tajseem, anthropomorphism, attributing a body to Allah. I have in front of me as introduction the book Jalal al-Ainain bi Muhakamati Bain al-Ahmadain of Allama Sayyid Abi Barakat Khairuddin Nu'man ibn Mahmud Effendi al-Aluzi al-Baghdadi. So this is the book of Sheikh Nu'man al-Aluzi, a great Hanafi scholar, son of the great Mufassir Mahmud al-Aluzi, who was the Imam of the Ahnaf of his time, like Badruddin Aini was the Imam of the Ahnaf of his time. Sheikh Mahmud al-Aluzi, the author of the famous Tafsir Ruh al-Bayan, was the Imam of his time, and his son Nu'man al-Aluzi wrote this book in defense of Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and he defended him from the false allegations made by Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Haythami, not Hafiz ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, the author of Fath al-Bari, but the other one, al-Faqih, the Shafi jurist, author of Zawajir and Fatwa Fiqhiyah. So basically in his book he defended Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, and he said that Ibn Hajar al-Haythami didn't follow the way of the scholars. He attributed many things to Ibn Taymiyyah without quoting him, and this is not the way of the scholars. The way of the scholars is to quote something, then refute it. I have translated the first part of the book of Sheikh Salih al-Sheikh against Muhammad ibn Alawi al-Maliki. These are notions, hazima fahimuna, and we can see the way of the scholars. First you quote the saying of your opponent, then you refute him. And likewise in my previous lectures against Mumtazul Haq and the Brailvis and the Ubandis, I have fully quoted from their books, and I even scanned their books and shown the scans of their books, so people can judge with unbiasedness and with no partiality. So I have shown before in my lectures on Wahdatul Wujud and the Deoband. I have shown the fatwa, the link to the website of Darul Uloom Deoband, saying Allah is present everywhere, but we don't know the kafiyah like the others. They say Allah is above the arsh, and they say Allah knows the kafiyah. We say Allah is everywhere, and we don't know the kafiyah. And I gave the link to Darul Uloom Deoband. Then I gave the link of Imdadullah Maki and all these people saying the servant reaches the state of uluhiyah, and all the quotes from his book and Imdad al-Mushtaq. Also, I mean, in my other quotes, lectures on Wahdatul Wujud and Ibn Arabi, I've quoted from Fusus al-Hikam, the explanation of Jami al-Fusus al-Hikam, and then I've quoted from the refutation after of Sa'd Taftazani al-Hanafi and Mullah al-Qari al-Hanafi, who have said the statement of these statements of Ibn Arabi are kufr upon kufr, that the worship of idols was nothing but the worship of Allah. Those who worship idols among the people of Nuh died in the ocean of knowledge and whatever. And the quotes of Jami, who interpreted Ibn Arabi saying all creeds are correct, and Jami quoted, and he defended Ibn Arabi's creed that all creeds are correct, quoting the poem of Ibn Arabi, عقد الخلائق في إلهي عقائدا ونعقدت جميع ما اعتقدوا. So I have quoted these books, I have scanned them and showed them. And this is the proper way when you refute. And Mullah al-Qari in his refutation of Ibn Arabi in his book Ibtal al-Qalb bi Wahdat al-Wujud, from which I'm going to publish a book taking many extracts of this book of Mullah al-Qari, and I've added fatwa of 200 scholars, fatwa of Badruddin al-Aini, fatwa of Ala al-Bukhari al-Hanafi, Ibrahim al-Halabi al-Hanafi, Ibn Shahna al-Hanafi, and many major Shafi'i and Maliki and Hanbali scholars, like the famous one known, Hafiz al-Bulqi in his fatwa, his son's fatwa Subki, and his son's fatwa Ibn Sayyid al-Nas, Hafiz al-Mizi, Ibn Daqiq al-Aid, and all the other Shafi'i scholars who declared Ibn, and who have written books like Hafiz Sakhawi, Hafiz al-Baqa'i, Ibn Muqri, and 200 major scholars from the Ibn Hajib al-Maliki, leaders from the Maliki school, leaders from old school of thought who have quoted Ibn Arabi's speech, who have written books against Ibn Arabi, quoting his speech, and then have declared him to be kafir. So that is proper way. Instead of declaring someone to have touched him, we should quote his sayings, like the scholars have quoted Fusus al-Hikam. Mullah al-Qari has quoted it. Mullah al-Qari even quotes the explanation of Fusus al-Hikam to show that what Ibn Arabi really means. And so this is the way of the scholar. But obviously, the way of Ibn Hajar Haythami and unfortunately Muhammad Yasir is to attribute things to their opponent without quoting their speech, because if they quote the speech of Ibn Taymiyyah, we can see the reality of whose quotes Ibn Taymiyyah is referring to and which great imams he's quoting from. And obviously the Deobandi layman, they don't want like Zahid al-Kawsari. Zahid al-Kawsari would say, oh, Daraqutni has a bad creed, Hafiz Abu Shaykh is a Mujassim, Ibn Abi Hatim has a bad creed, Hafiz Al-Asal is a Mujassim, this one is a Mujassim, this one is a Kitab Tawhid of Ibn Khuzaymah, Razi said, Fakhruddin is Kitab Shirk, this Kitab is a Kitab of misguidance, this book of Salaf he had Tajsim. So Zahid al-Kawsari would say it because he would insult many of the Imams and reduce them, but the Deobandi generally don't like this way. They try to hide and they just target Ibn Taymiyyah and his student Hafiz Ibn al-Qayyim, but they want to show themselves that we respect the Imams. Well, in reality, we know what they think of the Salaf and their opponents from the other madhahib. Obviously, they're going to defend all the Hanafis, but for the others, we know. And even Kawsari's student, Ahmad al-Ghumari, wrote a book against his teacher, Zahid al-Kawsari, which he named Rad al-Kawthari al-Kawthari. And in this book, Hafiz al-Ghumari, who is a Sufi Shadili, quoted many insults of Zahid al-Kawthari against Imam Malik, Shafi'i, Imam Ahmad, and how he was reviling all these Imams, al-Bukhari and others. So people can refer to these books. But the Deobandi, unfortunately, they follow the way of Zahid al-Kawthari, Ibn Hajar Haythami, and all these people, and not the way of Mullah al-Qari, Badruddin al-Aini, Nu'man al-Aluzi, And Mohammad al-Alusi, mashallah, is a very great scholar. He has even written a book, Ayatul Bayinat, about the dead not hearing, and he gathered many sayings of the Hanafi scholars about the dead not hearing. And there's even Deobandi Mamati scholar, Muhammad Hussein Nelvi, who's got a 3-volume book, Nidai Haq, and another one that I have, in which he gathered, I don't know how many quotes of Hanafi for telling the dead does not hear. Alhamdulillah, the Mamati scholars, Muhammad Yasir should look at them and how they, are better than the Hayati, and how they properly research and how they attribute quotes and follow the Hanafi fiqh about the dead not listening, while the Hayatis, they believe the dead listens and they go to grave, do muraqabah, do kashf al-qubur and others. So a very good book of Muhammad Hussein Nelvi, Nidai Haq, so to show that the opinions of the majority of scholars about the Hanafi scholars is that the dead does not hear. So Nu'man al-Alusi, on page 553, first he quotes a hadith of, he quotes the objection of Ibn Hajar al-Haythami in his Sharh Shama'il, and the famous hadith in Tirmizi about Prophet seeing Allah in his best form in a dream, and then Allah touched with his hand on the chest of the Prophet, and the Prophet could feel the coolness of it. And Ibn Taymiyyah explained this hadith, and Ibn Hajar objected to Ibn Taymiyyah's tafsir of this hadith. And he attributed as tajsim to Ibn Taymiyyah in the way he interpreted this hadith. And then Nu'man al-Alusi quoted Mullah al-Qari saying, after quoting the speech of Ibn Hajar, Aqul, meaning Mullah al-Qari al-Hanafi, great Hanafi scholar, author of the famous Mishkat al-Masabih, a book of explanation of very great, relied upon by the scholars and especially the Hanafis as well. So he said, Mullah al-Qari, أقول قد صانهم الله تعالى من هذه السمات الشنيعة, meaning Allah protecting them both, meaning Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim, from this evil direction, وَنِسْبَةَ فَذِيعَ, and from this ugly attribution, the attribution of tajsim, anthropomorphism, that they attribute a body to Allah. وَمَنْ تَعْلَ عَشَارَ الْمَنَازِلَ السَّائِرِينَ تبين له أنهما كان من أكابر أهل السنة والجماعة ومن أولياء هذه الأمة وهما بريئان مما رماهما أعداهما من تشبيه وتمثيل غير أنهما ذهبا إلى في باب الصفات إلى مذهب السلف الذي عليه أئمة الكرام. So he's saying Allah protecting them from this evil direction and this ugly direction, and whoever reads the book Sharh Manazil as-Sa'irin, Manazil as-Sa'irin is a book of Ismail Harawi, a Hanbali scholar. It's a book on Sufism, and his explanation is by Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, and his name is Madarij al-Salikin. He says, whoever reads this book, basically Madarij al-Salikin, it will become clear to him that these two, Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim, are from the greatest of the Ahl Sunnah. وَمِنْ أَوْلِيَا هَذِهِ الْأُمَّةِ, they are from the saints of this Ummah, subhanallah. And they are free from what the enemies attribute to them from tashbih and tamsil, meaning anthropomorphism, that they link Allah's attribute to the creation's attribute. Except that these two went in the chapters of attribute to the mazhab of the Salaf, upon which are the noble Imams, meaning the 4 Imams and the other, Lays ibn Sa'ad and Al-Awza'i and the other Imams. Subhanallah. So this is Mullah al-Qari, one of the great Hanafi muhaqqiq. And after Nu'man al-Alusi quoted al-Munawi, he also, in explanation of this, said, فَقَالُ Ibn Hajar غَيْر مُسْتَقِيم, the saying of Ibn Hajar is not right. He said, first of all, they mentioned this in a dream, and the books are present, we can check, so it is mentioned in a dream. And he said, secondly, نُؤْمِنُ بِنَ اللَّهُ يَدًا لَا كَيَدِ الْمَخْلُوقِ, we believe that Allah has a hand, not like the hand of the creation. And there is nothing stopping from putting his hand, but not in a way that resembles the creation. بَلْ وَضَعُ وَذَرْ يَلِيكُ بِجَلَالِهِ, but rather, with Allah is putting his hand according to his jalal. And he said, وَعَجَبْتُ مِنْ شيخ Ibn Hajar كَيْفَ أَنْكَرَ هَذَا مَا وُجُودُ الْخَبَرَ التِّرْمِذِي, and he said, I'm surprised at Sheikh Ibn Hajar how he objected to this, why the hadith is in Tirmidhi. You know that Allah put his hand on Prophet and he could feel the coolness on his chest. And then Noman Alusi explained the saying of Ibrahim al-Qurani, also defending Ibn Taymiyyah and freeing him from Tajsim and all other claims, unfounded claims. So this is the way of the great scholars who freed Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah. So now let's see what is the creed of the Salaf from their own books. So obviously, nobody can, we can't know what they do. These people, like I've said before, they do masakh of tariq. They don't show the history properly. What they want to do is just target these two and hide all the Hanbali scholars and all the other from the Maliki and early Shafi scholars who in their books of tafsir and others refuted the Asharis and their creed, and refuted the ta'wil and established the attributes upon the apparent meaning. So, and everybody who knows a little bit history or reads knows that the Hanbali scholars, many of them have declared the Asharis and Maturidis innovators. Some of them were very harsh against them, imputing kufr to Asharis, and they had lots of fights. So whoever reads a little bit the book knows it's not Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim's problem. Like Ismail Harawi, we quoted before, he wrote a book, this great Hanbali scholar that even the Sufi respect. He wrote two books against the people of Kalam, the Asharis and Maturidi. Dham al-Kalam, and his other book is Al-Faruq. And in Dham al-Kalam, he established the attribute of Allah al-Istiwa, rising above the throne. He said, بِذَاتِهِ, by his essence. So when Ismail al-Ansari al-Harawi used the word بِذَاتِهِ, it is clear that he knows what meaning, the meaning is known, like Imam Malik said, al-Istiwa ma'lum. So for him, he doesn't say the meaning of Istiwa, I don't know what it means, I just read it and I don't know what it means. No, because why would he say بِذَاتِهِ if the meaning is unknown? So it doesn't make any sense. Like I've quoted in my lectures against Mumtazul Haq, Qayrawani was a second Malik, they call him, in his Risala. He said that Allah he is above his arsh, وَلَا عَرْشِهِ الْمَجِيدِ بِذَاتِهِ, by his essence. And Hafiz ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah in his book Jush al-Ijtima al-Islamiyah, he quoted many explanations of early Maliki scholars of the Risala of Qayrawani, and they all said بِذَاتِهِ, Allah is above his arsh, by essence. They use the word بِذَاتِهِ. So, I mean, this, from all this quote, it makes it clear they understood the meaning of Istiwa, and I've quoted in my refutation against Maulana Mumtazul Haq, that in Sahih Bukhari, Imam Bukhari quoted from the Salaf the tafsir of Istiwa to mean irtafa'a, rising, and ala, meaning elevating and rising. So these two, if they didn't know what the meaning of Istiwa is, why would they use the word ala and Istiwa and irtifa'? And as well, they use other meanings. They also use the meaning istiqrar, settling upon. You see, and I will quote from Baghawi and Hafiz Ibn Abdul Barr al-Maliki, great early authorities from the Maliki and Shafi schools, to show that the Salaf did tafsir of the word istiwa. So when they did tafsir and they added to it the word bidatihi, we know for sure that they didn't do tafwiz of istiwa. So, I mean, because these people, they have their own version of histories, especially the Deobandis. This is for Ismail Ansari, but there are many other scholars of the Hanbalis who criticize the Asharis and the Maturidis, and they attributed kufr to them and many other things. There is also Abdul Qadir Jilani. Abdul Qadir Jilani, a Hanbali scholar, he came before Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah. I would mean the first volume of Ghunya Talibin translated into English by Mukhtar Holland, the Sufi. So we're going to read some parts of it. It's a Sufi translation. People cannot even say it's mistranslated by Salafis and Ahlul Hadith. And as well, people have to know that Abdul Qadir Jilani, Ibn Qudam al-Maqdisi, and Hafiz Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi were cousins, and they were both students of Abdul Qadir Jilani. And Hafiz Abdul Ghani Maqdisi, he's a great scholar, Hafiz. He's the author of the famous Umdatul Ahkam, which after Hafiz ibn Daqiq al-Aid explained. And he is also author of the book Al-Kamil fi Ma'rifa Rijal, and it's a great book about the narrators of the 6th book of Hadith. And he has done a huge work about on narrators of Hadith. And after Hafiz al-Mizzi took this, and after Ibn Hajar took from Al-Mizi in his Dhahabi took in his Tahdhib, and then Ibn Hajar took it after and expanded. So, mashallah, not only the Shafi scholars have done a great work on Asma Rijal, but also the Hanbali, and especially Hafiz Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi was a great scholar and a student of, cousin of Ibn Qudama, student of Abdul Qadir Jilani. What happened to him, as mentioned by the Muhaqqiq of the book of Abdul Qadir, of Abdul Ghani Maqdisi, Iqtisad fil I'tiqad, of the Hafiz, the author al-Ghamidi, Dr. Ahmad Ghamidi, he explained in the introduction that he, in Damascus, he was teaching some books, and he was speaking about the attributes, and Shafi'is, and the people of the Hafiz ibn Hajar wrote in his Zail Tabaqat al-Hanabila, he wrote that the people of Tawil opposed him, they complained to the rulers, they wanted to debate him, and finally, with their propaganda against Hafiz Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi, he has to exile to Egypt, and they follow him to Egypt, tried to get the ruler of Egypt against him, but he didn't fall in their schemes and the evil plots against him. So what if the problem is with Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, and not with Abdul Ghani Maqdisi, Ibn Qudama, and why would these scholars, people of that will attack them and did propaganda against them, so they had to flee their country? These great scholars and Hufaz, ulama, when they were criticizing the people of Ta'wil and attributing, and we're going to read the creed of, inshallah, Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi after, and Ibn al-Qudama as well. And also Hafiz ibn Hajar narrated in his book Durar al-Kamina that Hafiz al-Mizi, a Shafi scholar and student of Ibn Taymiyyah, when he was reading the book Khalq Af'al al-Ibad of Imam al-Bukhari in the masjid, Umayyad Masjid, the Shafi'is, meaning the Asharis obviously, they said, oh, he's claiming to target the Mu'tazili and the Jahmi, but he's targeting us. And this because the Asharis, the late Asharis, they did the same ta'wil as the Mu'tazili. They say istiwa means istola, conquering, and the hands mean Allah's power. So when he was quoting the narrations of Bukhari against the Mu'tazila and Jahmi, they felt hurt. And they said he's targeting us. So they had Hafiz al-Mizi, one of the greatest Shafi scholar, they had him imprisoned. And then Ibn Taymiyyah, when he heard this, he went to the rulers and he went with his followers and had permission to free him. And Hafiz al-Sakhawi, in his book Daw al-Lami', also mentioned that Ahmad ibn Sharai, another Shafi scholar, he was also faced persecution because of his teaching Khalq Af'al al-Ibad of Bukhari. So these people don't have only problem with Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn al-Qayyim al-Jawziyah, they have problem with Hafiz al-Misi, with Abdul Ghani Maqdisi, with anyone teaching the books of Salaf. You know, because that's their problem, but obviously in front of the layman, they don't want to speak bad of the Imams, but we know the reality of these people. Of Zahid al-Kawsari, how insulted the Salaf, and unfortunately, if I have time at the end, I will read from the book Nur al-Anwar, of some Hanafi Muqallid, how they attributed ignorance to Imam Shafi'i for an issue for which they say even Muawiyah judged with a Shahid, with a Yamin, meaning with one testimony and an oath. And they said Muawiyah judged with it, and this is also Imam Nawawi wrote in his Sharh of Sahih Muslim, it is the mazhab of Imam Ahmad, Imam Malik, and Imam Shafi'i, and almost all the majority of the scholars and almost all the scholars of Hijaz, all the fuqaha. So this is the mazhab of the majority of this ummah judging, and they said that Imam Shafi'i is ignorant, and it is among the ignorance that won't be forgiven on Judgment Day. Meaning all these scholars, Shafi'i, Malik, it implies Malik, Ahmad, they all were guilty of doing an act of ignorance by judging this hadith. في جواز قضاء بشاهد ويمين, and they attribute ignorance to the Imams in Nurul Anwar of Mullah Jivan. And he said our ancestors used to say this, else I wouldn't dare to say this. So this is we'll see the reality of the many of the Muqallidin, how they attribute to Imam Bukhari that he didn't have fiqh, and his teacher Abu Hafs al-Kabir forbade him to give fatwa, but because he said that the two people who drink from the same goat, they become forbidden to each Hurma is established. So then this story has no isnad, but that's unfortunately how it is. The ta'assub and the people, how the ta'assub, the takfir of each other's, they didn't pray, they didn't marry each other's. The book Bahr al-Raq is filled of such stories. So now let's go to the subject and let's read Ghunya Talibin, who these people, Ashraf Ali Thanvi, call not only the Brailwi, but Brailwi have so many fairy tales. I've done in my previous lectures about their fairy tales that his eyes is always set on Loh Mahfuz, the story they quoted from Bahjatul Asrar, and fairy tales, satanic khurafat. But unfortunately, even Ashraf Ali Thanvi, like I've explained in my book on the Deobandi, a critical analysis of the Sufi creed of the elders of Deoband and Tablighi Jamaat, on my book, and it's also on my website in a summarized way, and it has scans to the original books of Deobandis. I will put a link below for people to check and read the story below on my channel, below the link. That even Ashraf Ali Thanvi tells strange stories, that one from a book of Sufi hikayas to fairy tale, that one night Abdul Qadir Jilani, the host, woke up and he took one of his students somewhere in Mosul, and then they had a meeting. One of the person died, they prayed janazah on him, and then they were talking between themselves, and then Abdul Qadir Jilani brought someone from Rome, a kafir. He had a cross, he broke his cross and made him an abdal. Meaning one of the abdal, Sufi, I mean, they have this ranking of fairy tales, I mean, Ghaus, Qut, abdal, or that. And one of the abdallah died, and Abdul Qadir Jilani, they gathered with other son, and they made a kafir. And they made him, Nauzubillah, the Prophet couldn't make his uncle Muslim, Abu Talib, but these people, they come and just bring a kafir woman, break his clothes. These are the creed of the, unfortunately, the tasawwuf, the fairy tales, the khurafat, fusus al-hikam, ibn Arabi, batini knowledge. Unfortunately, so for Ashraf Ali Thanvi, he's the host. Why you don't take the aqidah of your Ghuth? And some parts of it have been quoted by Hafiz Zahabi 100 years ago. People cannot say like Ahmad Raza Khan, Brailwi that, oh, Wahhabis have tempered and whatever. So this translation is of Mukhtar Holan, who's a Sufi. Volume 1, page 174. After he speaks on the attributes, he says, he loves and hates, he disapproves and he approves, meaning Allah. He displays anger and manifests displeasure. He shows compassion and he forgives. He gives and withholds. He has two hands, yadan. The Arabic words are those, I mean the author, the translator, puts them in bracket as well. He has two hands, yadan, and each of his two hands is a right hand, yamin. Then he quotes the verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, and the heavens are rolled up in his right hand. As-samawatu matwiyatun biyaminih. And then he carries on mentioning the attribute, and he said, meaning Allah planted the garden of Eden with his own hand, and the tree of bliss, Shajara Tuba, with his own hand. He wrote the Tuba with his own hand, and he delivered it to Moses from his hand to his hand. And he also spoke to Moses by addressing him directly with no intermediary channel and without an interpreter. The hearts, qulub, of his servants are between two fingers of the all-merciful Ar-Rahman. He spins them around, yuqallibuha, as he wills, and instills in them whatever he wishes. On the day of resurrections, the heavens and the earth will be in the palm of his hands, as we know in the tradition from the hadith, and he will set his foot in hell, Jahannam, one part of which will shrink away towards another's, while he cries, enough, no more. Then he carries on speaking about the attributes. Allah exalted his created 7 heaven, one above another, and 7 earths, one below another. The time it takes to travel from the highest earth to the lowest heaven is 500 years. And the distance between each heaven to the next is a journey of 500 years, meaning each have 7 heavens, each heaven, the distance between them is 500 years. Okay, there is water above the 7 heaven, and the throne of the All-Merciful, Arsh Rahman, is above the water, meaning the 7 heavens, above there's water, above there is the throne of Rahman. I've spoken about this hadith in my lecture about Mumtaz, like one can refer to it, it has weakness, but it's about the mountain, the 8 angels in the shape of goats carrying the Arsh of Rahman in Sunan Ibn Majah and Abu Dawud and others. Sunan Tirmidhi. So, and then he says, Allah is upon the throne, and beneath him are the 70,000 veils of light, of darkness. Then he carries on, the throne has bearers who carry it, and then he mentioned, and you shall see the verses, and you shall see the angels circling around the throne. Then he carries on, he is far above any resemblance to his creation. No place is beyond the scope of his cognizance, ilm. It is not permissible, however, to describe him as being in every place. The correct statement to make is that he is in the heaven, fi sama, upon the throne, ala al-arsh, as he himself said, the All-Merciful has established himself upon the throne, al-Rahman ala al-arsh istawa. And then he quoted the verse, thumma istawa ala arsh al-Rahman. And then he quoted the verse, unto him the good works ascend and the righteous deed he does exalt. So, okay. And then look at this, totally destroyed the notion of tafweed. These people, Mumtazul Haq, they don't like the hadith of Jariyah, but look what Abdul Qadir Jilani, the Ghaus of Ashraf Ali Tanvi, Na'udhu we don't call Abdul Qadir Jilani Ghaus. What he's saying about the hadith of Jariyah. As for the Prophet ﷺ, he judged that the community had truly accepted Islam when he said to its members, where is Allah? And they all pointed toward heaven. So for him it is a test of Iman, asking where is Allah, and if the reply is correct, then it shows your Iman. I'm going to read it again. As for the Prophet ﷺ, he judged that the community had truly accepted Islam when he said to its members, where is Allah? And they reported towards the heaven. The Prophet ﷺ once said, according to the tradition of Abu Hurairah, then he mentions another hadith. So this is how Abdul Qadir Jilani, for him it is a test to test the validity. Truly, if you have truly accepted Islam, this is the test. Where is Allah? And these people like the Qatharis and the others, they reject this hadith and give it ta'wil, some weaken it, na'udhu billah. Hadith that says, talaqi bil qabul, which has, how many of the Salaf quoted it? We're going to see it after. Ibn Abdul Bar, Daraqutni, Ibn Khuzaymah, they quoted many of the Salaf this hadith against the Jahmiyyah, those who denies Allah's attributes. Then Abdul Qadir Jilani carries on, it is proper to use the expression firmly establish himself, meaning istiwazat, in a quite straightforward literal sense, without subjecting to the forced interpretation. So it is the English translation, a quite straightforward literal sense. It's upon the itlaq, without subjecting to forced interpretation, ta'wil. It must, you see, so must also be clearly understood to mean the self-establishment of the divine essence, istiwa at-that, upon the throne. Then he carries on, not in an abstract sense of exaltness, ulu, and elevated dignity, rifa, as maintained by the Asharis. You see, so no, Ashariya, so he's refuting the meaning of the Asharis. So he was against the Asharis. It's not Ibn Taymiyyah ibn al-Qayyim. It's all the Hanbali scholars basically were against the Asharis. And not in the sense of control, istila, and domination, ghalaba, as maintained by the Mu'tazila. So doing the tafsir of istiwa by istila, control, domination, this is the tafsir of the Mu'tazila. These doctrines are unacceptable. Then he carries on further with the other attribute. He quotes a report of Ka'b al-Akbar. We believe this because what has been reported on the authority of Sayyid ibn al-Musayyab to the effect of Ka'b al-Ahbar, who said that Allah said in the Torah, I, Allah, am above my servants and my throne is above the wall of my creation. I am upon my throne whereon I regulate the affairs of my servant, and nothing pertaining to my servant is ever hidden from me. And then Abdul Qadir Jilani says, indeed the fact that he is upon the throne is mentioned in every scripture that has been revealed. Fi kulli kitabin unzila, to every prophet who has been sent forth to deliver his message. Ala kulli nabin ursila. Without further explanation, bila kayf, meaning kayf means how it is, the detail of how it is. Then he carries on that obviously he's saying Allah has the attribute of power and ghalaba, but none of this therefore can be what is meant by self-establishment istiwa. Self-establishment must be one of the attributes of the divine essence, sifat al-dhat, since he has informed us of it, mentioning it explicitly and stated it emphatically in 7 verses of the Quran. And since these views confirmed by the Prophet tradition, it must be an attribute, sifat, that is intrinsic to him, lazima lahu, and properly befitting him, la'iqa bihi, meaning befitting Allah, like the hand, yad, the face, wajh, the eye, ain, the hearing, sama, the sight, basar, the life, hayat, the power, qudra, and all of which are properly attributed to him, as well as his being the creator al-khaliq, the sustainer al-raziq, the giver of life, al-muhin, and the causer of death, al-mumit. So for him, we should believe in the attribute of istiwa in the same manner as we believe in the hand, same manner as we believe in the face, same manner as we believe in the eye, same manner as we should believe in the hearing, the sight, the life. So this is one of the greatest, we're going to see later in Sunan Tirmizi, a greater proof that the Salaf didn't do ta'wil. They put the attribute of istiwa, hand, foot, with the attributes of hearing, seeing, life, qudra. If now we ask Mohammad Yasir, if the Salaf did, why the Salaf put these attributes together? No, they didn't say, oh, these attributes, we affirm their meaning. The meaning of hearing is hearing, the meaning of life is life, but we don't know how Allah's life is. But as for hand and foot, no, we don't know what the meaning is. You know, the Salaf, they applied the same rule upon, I'm going to see from other books of the Salaf, they quoted all these hadiths and they applied the same rule upon them. We read them as they are without kayf. So if they said the Salaf did tafweed of ayn, then they have to say they did tafweed of sama and basar. We don't know what it means. And this is what the Jahmiyyah said. Allah doesn't hear, Allah doesn't see, Allah doesn't speak. And he put it with khaliq and raziq. We don't know what the meaning of khaliq and raziq is. I mean, how stupid it is now, billah. I mean, ilm al-kalam, I mean. Then he says, we do not depart from the book and sunnah. We read the Quranic verse and traditional khabar. We believe what these two sources contain and we entrust the detailed understanding kayfiyah, meaning we entrust the kayfiyah of the divine attributes to the knowledge of Allah. As Sufyan ibn Uyayna said, just as Allah described himself, in other words, the reading of it is self-explanatory, meaning istiwa ma'lum, the reading is known in the Arabic language, and there is no need of further interpretative commentary. This is all what is required of us because the rest is mystery ghaib. And then he carries on about the hadith of nuzul. The believer must acknowledge and be thoroughly convinced that he exalted his descent is not to the heaven of this lower world, sama ad-dunya, however he wills and just as he wills, and that he then forgive those who have sinned, erred, offended and disobeyed those of his servants, that is to say whom he chooses and wishes to forgive. This is not to be understood as meaning the descent of Allah's mercy, nuzul al-rahmah, and his spiritual reward as mentioned by the Mu'tazila and Ashariya, meaning he's denying the ta'wil made by the Mu'tazila and Ashari. And then he mentioned other attribute about those who refute these attributes. He mentioned some narrations of the Salaf. Ishaq ibn Rawa said, someone asked Ishaq ibn Rahawayya, what are these traditions you are relating to the effect of Allah descending to the lowest heaven? Does Allah then rise up again? Does he move about? Ishaq replied by asking the questioner, would you say of Allah that it's possible for Allah to descend and to ascend? And to do so without moving about? When the man gave the answer, he said yes. So Ishaq went on to say, so why do you have a problem with this? And then he said, Yahya ibn Ma'in said, if a Jahmi asks you, how does he descend? You should reply to him, how did he ascend? As for Fudail ibn Yahis, he offered this advice, if a Jahmi tells you, I'm a disbeliever, kafir in a Lord who is supposed to descend, you should say to him, I'm a believer, mu'min in a Lord who does whatever he wills. So subhanallah, all this explanation of refutation of the Jahmi who said, oh, how can Allah descend? How can, and he said, if we believe in a Lord that does whatever he wills and how he wills, and you should ask the Jahmi, how did Allah rise then? If he denies, then after he spoke about the Quran and he quoted that the letters of the Quran are not created, Then he spoke about Allah speaking with a sound and voice. So this is the creed of the Ghaus, the Abdul Qadir Jilani. So now let's see the book اقتصاد في الاعتقاد of Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi. So he narrated in it, in this book, page 88, 89, yeah, that's the one. Obviously, he mentioned about the chapter of Ulu. He mentions which hadith? The hadith of Jariyah. Why in the book of Aqidah they mentioned the hadith of Jariyah? Well, for these people, it doesn't mean it's either weak or it doesn't mean Allah is above the arsh. Na'udhu billah, na'udhu billah. So he mentions this hadith in the book of Aqidah with the other hadith about after the verses about Ulu. He mentions this one. The hadith أين الله قالت في سماء قال من أنا قالت أنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال أعتقها فإنها مؤمنة, narrated by Muslim, Abu Dawud, Nasai and others. And then look at the commentary of Abdul Ghani al-Maqdisi. ومن أجهل جهلا وأسخف عقلا وأدل سبيلا ممن يقول أنه لا يجوز أن يقال أين الله مع تسري صاحب الشعرية بقوله أين الله. He said from the greatest of ignorance, from the most idiot of intelligence, and from the most misguided way is the one who says it is not permissible to say where is Allah, while the Sahib Sharia, the Prophet said where is Allah, subhanallah. So how can you do ta'wil? How can this prove the creed of Tawheed of Abdul Ghani Maqdisi? Is he an anthropomorphist? He says it is the greatest ignorance to say to forbid saying where is Allah. And I remember Mumtazul Haq saying the Salafi are misguiding people by asking where is Allah. But for Abdul Qadir Jilani, their so-called Ghaus, it is attesting the true Islam. For him, it is the greatest ignorance and the greatest misguidance from the right way to object to asking the question where is Allah. Then after, when speaking about the hands, he mentions the hadith about the hands with the verse بل يده مبسوطتان and the verse ما منعك أن تسجد لما خلقت بيدي. Allah said to Iblis, what forbade you to prostrating to the one I created with my hands? And then he mentions other hadiths, the hadith of Musa arguing with Adam that Allah created you with his hand and this and that, and then Adam had the overhand and he said it was decreed before, the famous hadith. So after this he said فَلَا نَقُولُ يَدٌ كَيَدٍ. We do not say the hand is like our hand. وَلَا نُكَيْفُ وَلَا نُشَبِهُ. Nor would you attribute a kayfiyah, meaning how it is, nor we do tashbih, nor we say it is a hand like the hand of the creation. ولا نتأول اليدين على القدرة كما يقول أهل التعتيل وتأويل. And we do not say that the hands mean powers, as it is said by people of ta'til, those who deny the attribute ta'wil, those who extrapolate. بل نؤمن بذلك ونثبت الصفة من غير تحديد. تحديد here means, without كيفية, like he said before, ولا تشبيه. ولا يسيء حمل اليدين على القدرتين. And it is not correct to hold the hands upon the meaning of قدرة. فإن قدرة الله عز وجل واحدة. It is one. And and it is also forbidden ولا على النعمتين, upon two favors. فإن نعم الله لا تحسب. The favors of Allah cannot be counted. And then he said, وصح عن رسول صلى الله عليه وسلم ينقل العدل عن العدل مثل المحبة. And he said the trustworthy from the trustworthy have narrated from the Prophet ﷺ the attributes of al-mahabba, love, al-mashiyah wal-irada, his desire and will, al-dahak, his smiling, wal-farh, his joy, ajab, wal-bughd, his hatred, wal-sakhat, his anger, wal-karh, his dislike, wal-rida, his satisfaction, and all of the attributes wasair masaha and Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he said, some ignorant people, استوشت منها نفوس المعطلين, the souls of the people of Ta'til, they have aversion when they hear this hadith. So he mentions the hadith of the hands with the other attribute. He said, we believe in them, we do not we do not say hand like our hand, we do not attribute any kayfiyah, we do not do tashbih, we do not interpolate hand, and after hand he may mention the other attribute, like the love of Allah, his intent, his love, his liking. So if these people, they say Abdul Ghani Maqdisi did tafwid, why did he mention the hand with his sifat of Muhammad, Mashi and Irada? Do you say Allah's Irada, we don't know the meaning of Irada? Allah is fa'alun lima yurid, but we don't know what yurid means. Na'udhu billah. So this is how it is clear that he did not, by quoting the hands, he did not intend tafwid. Now we go to his cousin Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi, who unfortunately some people say he did tafwid, but there's an article on a website because he had some mujmal saying in his Lumatul I'tiqad on the website sahifa.org, in which they quoted from Ibn Qudama saying in Zamatawil, the mazhab of the Salaf is to have iman in the attributes of Allah Ta'ala and his names with which he described himself. Then he carries on, without giving an explanation or ta'wil that opposes its zahir, meaning the apparent meaning, without giving an explanation or ta'wil which opposes its zahir. So here it's clear that Ibn Qudama al-Maqdisi affirms the apparent meaning, and in his book Isbat Sifat al-Ulu, we're going to see clearly that he establishes the meaning of istiwa upon the apparent meaning, and when he says we don't know the meaning, he means the meaning of the kayfiyah. He doesn't means the tafwid, else his speech would be contradictory. I mean, you can refer to the article on sahifa.org about Ibn Qudama. So in his book Isbat Sifat al-Ulu, he starts and he said the creation, فترهم عند نزول الكرب بهم يلهثون سما بعينهم ويرفعون نحو الدعاء لدعاء أيديهم. So you will see them at the time of difficulty in the Nuzul al-Karabi, they will look at the sky with their eyes and raise their hands towards it. ينتظرون المجيء الفرج من ربهم, and they will wait for the coming of the help from Allah. So this is one line from him. Then he mentions all the verses about istiwa, ثم استوى على العرش, and then آمنتم من في السماء إليه يصعد الكلم الطيب, the good speech rises to him. ثم يعرج إليه تعرج الملائكة والروح إليه, the angels ascend to him. And Imam Bukhari, like I've said in the lecture on Mumtazul Haq, after the chapter of Arsh, he quoted the chapter تعرج الملائكة والروح إليه. So we can see the relevance of Imam Bukhari and his fiqh. And then he quoted إني متوفيك ورافعك إليك, about Isa, Allah saying, I will raise you to me. And then وهو القاهر فوق عبادي, Allah is above his servant. يخافون ربهم من فوقهم, they fear their Lord above them. And then look at this, subhanallah. وأخبر من فرعون أنه قال, and he informed about Pharaoh that he said, يا هامان ابن لي صرحا لعلي أبلغ الأسباب أسباب السماوات فأطلع إلى إله موسى وإني لأظنه كاذبا. Pharaoh said to Haman, oh Haman, build me a tower so I can reach the horizons of the heaven, so I can see the Lord of Musa, but I believe him to be a liar. And يعني أظن موسى كاذبا, meaning I believe Musa to be liar. في أن الله إلهه في السماء, and I believe him to be liar in his saying that Allah, in the fact that Allah is his divinity in the heaven. So he quotes these verses to show that he says, I believe you to be a liar, meaning in your claim that Allah is above the arsh, because He can only say to Musa, I believe you to be a liar, if Musa had informed him, my Lord is above the heavens. So this is what he said, يعني أظن موسى كاذبا في أن الله إلهه في السماء. Then after he mentions the verses, the ahadith, or he mentions the ahadith I have mentioned in my lecture, I guess, Mumtaz on, you see, have mercy upon the people of the earth, and the one who is yarhamukum man fi sama, the one who is above the heaven, above the heaven will have mercy upon you. Then and then he mentioned the hadith of Jari again, of the slave girl, and فقال الرسول أين الله فقالت في السماء فقال من أنا قال أنت رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال أعتقها فإنها مؤمنة. And he said that it has been written by Muslim, Malik, and others from the Aimah. So for Ibn Qudama, this hadith establishes creed and others. So let him see after the hadith, the narrations of the Salaf. He narrates from Malik, Allahu fi sama wal muhu fi kulli makan. Okay, this saying of Malik. Then he carries on the saying of Sufyan al-Thawri, that وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ أَيْنَمَا كُنْتُمْ, meaning by his knowledge. Then he mentions the saying of Ahmad ibn Hanbal. Then he mentions, we carry on, the saying of Ibn Mubarak, which is authentic and coming from so many books, so many narrations. Someone asked Ibn Mubarak, كيف نعرف ربنا, how do we know our Lord? He said, قال في السماء سابع على عرشه, above the seven heaven, above his arch. ولا نقول كما تقول الجهمية. We do not say like the Jahmiya say, إنه ها هنا وها هنا, he is here, he is here. Then he mentions in narration, قال أبو بكر الأثرم حدثني محمد بن رحم القيسي قال قلت لأحمد حنبل يحكي عن ابن مبارك قيل له كيف نعرف ربنا. And Imam Ahmad said, هو هكذا هو عندنا, it is the same for us. Then he carries on another narration of Athram. Then in the next page, he narrates from narrations of Sulaiman ibn Harb, who said to Hamad ibn Zayd, one of the great faqih of the Salaf, أي شيء كان حماد ibn Zayd يقول في الجهمية فقال, which things was Hamad ibn Zayd saying about the Jahmiya? And Sulaiman ibn Harb said that Hamad ibn Zayd used to say, كان يقول إنما يريدون أنه ليس في السماء شيء. These people, the Jahmiya, want to say that above the heaven there is nothing. You see, so how can they do tafwiz of this? It is clear by itself that the Jahmiya want to establish that there is nothing above the arsh, and this is what these people, they deny it, Allah being above the arsh, and they say we don't know what the meaning is. So this hadith, I think it has been enough from Ibn Qudama to see. This hadith has been narrated by Hafiz al-Dhahabi in his Ulu. And we're going to see how many people, the Hamad ibn Zayd al-Basri, Hafiz Ahad al-A'lam, a great faqih. He said Abdurrahman ibn Abi Hatim al-Razi, which Zahid al-Qori said has a bad creed, but for us, he's one of the Imam Ahlul Hadith like Abu Shaykh, Al-Humaydi, Bukhari, and Daraqutni, and all these people. They are Imam. We take our religion from these people, our creed. We don't take from Fusus al-Hikam and Jami and all these people, and Dawud al-Qaysari. Dawud al-Qaysari in his Fusus al-Hikam, he even quoted, he said that Ibn Arabi said in his book, Anqa al-Maghrib, Anqa is a mystical bird like the Sphinx. I mean, it's Harry Potter, I don't know what it is. Anqa is a mystical bird of the Sufis. So Ibn Arabi in his book, Anqa al-Maghrib, he said that Abu Bakr on the judgment day will be under my banner, like he was under the banner of the Prophet in the field of Ittiba. He said Abu Bakr, na'udhu billah, Abu Bakr will be, and this is Dawud Qaysari mentioned, I have all these quotes, and inshallah, I mean, in my next book on Ibn Arabi, in which I have gathered 200 fatwa of scholars, there will be these mentions of Dawud al-Qaysari, of Ibn Arabi saying Abu Bakr will be under my banner. These people take their aqidah from Ibn Arabi, Sheikh Akbar. We take our aqidah from Abdurrahman ibn Abi Hatim, from Bukhari, from Ad-Darimi, from Ibn Abi Shayba, from Naim ibn Hamad. We take our aqidah from these scholars. May Allah protect us from the Zahid al-Kawthari and his followers. So قال عبد الرحمن بن حاتم الرازي حافظ في كتاب رهدل الجهمية حدثنا سليمان بن حرب سمعت حماد بن زيد يقول إنما I don't know if they إنما يدورون على أن يقولوا ليس في السماء إله يعني الجهمية, meaning the Jahmiya want to say that there is ليس في السماء إله, there is no divinity above the heavens. حافظ ابن حجر said قلت ما قالت السلف وأئمة السلف بالصحابة أن الله في السماء. He said the saying of the Salaf and the Sahaba is that Allah is above the heavens, وأن الله على العرش, and Allah is above the arsh, وأن الله فوق السماوات, is above the seventh, وأنه ينزل السماء الدنيا, and that he descends. ومقالة الجهمية إن الله في جميع الأمكنة, and the saying of the Jahmiya that Allah is in all places. تعالى الله عن قولهم, Allah is exalted from the saying بل هو معنا أينما كنا بعلمه, but rather he is with us wherever we are by his knowledge. And he said مقالات المتكلمين, the people of late kalam, they said أن الله ليس في سماء, Allah is not above the heaven, meaning like the Jahmiya, they said Allah is not there. Same, the Jahmiya, he said Hamad ibn Zayd, the Jahmiya want to say that Allah, there is no divinity above the arsh, and same the Mutakallimin, they say Inna Allah isa fi sama. This is why they objected to Mizi reading Khalq al-Fa'ala li, but this is why they had Abdul Ghani Maqdisi stop him teaching, because they don't want these narrations against the Jahmiya hurting them so badly. So that's why they are attributing this on, oh, it's Ibn Qayyim, it's Ibn Taymiyyah, but it's not Ibn Abi Hatim, it's not Zayd, Hamad ibn Zayd, it's Ibn Taymiyyah, he is Mujassim, na'udhu billah. Na'udhu billah, thumma na'udhu billah. The greatest awliya from this ummah, has said by Mullah al-Qari, who also, declared that Sheikh Ibn Arabi as the greatest of Kafir, Sa'at Aftazani and others. They've written books quoted from Fusus, inshallah, in the right time. So he said that the Mutakallim is saying, Inna laysa fi sama wala ala al-arsh, that Allah is not above the heaven, nor above the arsh, wala ala samawat, nor above the heavens, wala fil ard, nor on the earth, wala dakhil alam, wala kharij alam, nor inside the universe, nor outside the universe, meaning he is non-existent, na'udhu billah. Wala huwa bainun an khalqihi, he is not separate from the creation, wala muttasil bihim, he is not separate from the creation, neither joined from it. وقالوا في جميع هذه الأشياء صفات الأجسام والله منزه عن الجن. He said all these attributes, Allah being above the arsh, above the heaven, are the attributes of the bodies, and Allah is pure from body. وقال لهم أهل السنة والأثر نحن لا نأخذ في ذلك, we do not go deep in it, and we mention the nusus. I said ولا نقول بقولكم, we do not say with your saying, because this فإن هذه سلوب النعوت المعدوم, because these are the attributes of the non-existent. He's neither separate with nor joined with it. He's neither inside the creation nor above it. He said these are the attributes of the one who ma'dum, the non-existent. تعالى الله عن العدم, and Allah is exalted from the absence. بل هو موجود متميز عن خلقه, rather he's present and distinct from his creation. موصوف بما وصف به نفسه, described with what he described himself, من أنه فوق عرشه بلا كيف, and he's above his arsh بلا كيف, meaning when we don't know the knowledge of the reality. And he said حماد بن زيد للعراقي نذير مالك بن أنس للحجازيين في الحجازيين في الجلالة والعلم. He said حماد ibn Zayd, he is the similar to Malik for the people of Hijaz. For the people of Iraq, he's similar to Malik for the people. And this hadith of Hamad ibn Zayd, the muhaqqiq of the book, he said أخرج Imam Ahmad في المسند عن علي ibn Muslim. So this hadith of Hamad ibn Zayd, it is in Musnad Ahmad. You see, it's not in Ibn Taymiyyah ibn al-Qayyim, it's in Musnad Ahmad. Now you're going to deny Musnad Ahmad? Also in Abdullah Ibn Ahmad in his Kitab Sunnah. Inshallah, we will quote Kitab Sunnah after. Halal in his Kitab Sunnah. I mean, some of these people they object to halal, but you can see the same narrations are in this book. It shows all these books are authentic. Ibn Bata in his Ibana, Ibn Qudama, from Athram I have quoted Ibn Qudama, Ibn al-Qayyim, okay, and Ibn Taymiyyah declared it authentic, and all the other scholars, Sheikh Albani and all others. Sheikh Albani said it has many other ways in the Sunnah of Abdullah ibn Ahmad. So this narration is 100% authentic. And we have seen the speech of Hafiz Dhahabi on it, that what the Salaf say and what these people say. So we can see there's no tafweez in Abdul Qadir Jilani, Ismail Ansari, Abdul Ghani Maqdisi. He's the teacher of the Al-Maqdisi, another great Hanbali Muhaddis, and he was upon the Salafi Aqidah as well. Ibn Qudama in Sifat al-Ulu, Ibn Rajab, because he quoted from Ibn Qudama and Ibn Rajab that these people put the attributes among the unclear verses, al-mutashabihat. But when the scholars use say that the verse are of the attributes are under the verses of mutashabihat, the unclear verses, they don't mean the kayfiyah is unknown. You know, what they mean is the kayfiyah is unknown. They don't mean that the meaning is unknown. You know, because even Ibn Taymiyyah is most of the usul fiqh, like it's written on the website sahifa.org, he says that these verses, the attributes are in it. And I have Majmu' Fatawa, if we have time at the end. Ibn Taymiyyah says as well the attributes are in the mutashabihat, but it's the kayfiyah, because this verse of the mutashabihat has two readings among the companions. Some stop at nobody knows the ta'wil but Allah and the people of knowledge, rasikhun fil ilm, you see. That meaning the rasikhun fil ilm. And some Sahaba said nobody knows the ta'wil except Allah, and the rasikhun fil ilm say. So depending on both reading, one of the meaning will be that the only Allah knows the ta'wil, and here it will mean only Allah knows the kayfiyah. And we will see in the speech of Ihtisam of Shatibi that he himself, when he put the attributes in the mutashabihat, what he meant was the kayfiyah, because in his Ihtisam he also says that the sirat, the scale, the miracles, turning a staff into a snake, all these verses are because the philosophers denied the torment of the grave, the existence, physical existence of the sirat, and the physical existence of the scale. They denied the top punishment of the grave, and they denied the miracles, like turning the staff into a snake and giving life back to a dead. And then they denied the attributes. So he put all these things together, and he has a long, lengthy discussion we will see after, inshallah, we have time today, on Ihtisam. And Muhammad Yasir only quoted general speech of Shatibi in Al-Ihtisam. If you quote it fully, you can see that he's speaking about the karamat, the attributes, the scale, the torment of the grave. So will Muhammad Yasir say the torment of the grave, we don't know what it means? The scale, we don't know what it means? The snake turning into a stick, we don't know its meaning? No, the kayfiyah is unknown. And Imam Shatibi used this verse of mutashabihat, and he said people who use it as innovators. He was intending the Mu'tazila and Jahmiya, because they use the verses to deny Allah's speech, seeing Allah, and denying the punishment of the grave. So he was using them. He didn't, I mean, I will read it to you. He didn't say those who believe Allah has a hand but not like our hand. It refers to them, those who believe in the literal meaning of hand or foot. So Ibn Rajab, in his book about the dispute of the highest angel, published by Message of Islam, he says, when Allah puts his hand on the Prophet's chest, he says, as for the description of the messenger gave on page 15, regarding his Lord, then it is real and it is true. One must believe in it, as Allah described himself, while negating any similitude unto him. Whatever is confusing, difficult to much whatever is difficult to comprehend, one should do like those firmly grounded in knowledge, whereby Allah praised them by stating that whenever they come across in clear matter, they say, we believe in it, the whole of it, meaning clear and unclear, are from Allah. So this is what he meant this, but in his speech he didn't say, "Oh, the meaning of the hand and the foot is unknown." It's just a general statement, you know. And in his other book of so when they said that the verses are among the mutashabih, they deny the kayfiyah. Ibn Taymiyyah also put this in mutashabih, but he denies the kayfiyah, not the knowledge, because in his book in Biyan Fadl Ilm Salaf ala Ilm al Khalaf, the the excellence of the superiority of the knowledge of the Salaf among the Khalaf, he mentioned on page 36 in Dar Sunnah Publishers, he blames the people of Kalam, and the Bandis, they're people of Kalam, they study the book of Kalam. He said, those who negate much of what is reported in the book and Sunnah concerning the attributes due to implication in their view of a likeness between the creation and creator. So he was blaming people of Kalam to deny the attributes in the book of Sunnah because for them it implies tashbih between Allah and His creation. From amongst these are the Mu'tazila, who said if he can be seen, he must be a body because one requires a direction in which to see. If his speech can be heard, he must be a body. Those who negated his istiwa did so by means of the same reasoning. This is the path of the Mu'tazila and the Jahmi, about whom the Salaf were agreed as to their being innovators and misguiders. So then he criticized others who went, who attributed other speech of the Salaf, which the Salaf didn't say. And then he said after, the correct position in all of this is the position of the righteous Salaf in the leaving all verses and hadith concerning their attributes as they came without explanation. Asking how. You know, asking how. He said we leave them without asking how. Or likening them to the creation. So what Ibn Rajab denied was the kayfiyah, without asking how. So this is, and he criticized the mutakallimun and the philosophers and all the people of Kalam. And he mentioned the saying of Abu Zur'a Razi, whoever possesses knowledge, meaning of, yet his knowledge is not refined, as you should, he said, I mean, whoever requires speculative theology to spread it, his knowledge, you should have nothing to do with him. Whoever possesses knowledge, yet his knowledge is not refined, and as such he requires speculative theology, kalam, meaning whoever requires for his knowledge, ilm kalam, to spread it, you should have nothing to do with him. Meaning all these people who teach books of kalam and this, you should have nothing to do with them, na'udhu billah. So we have seen the speech of Ibn Rajab. Now we will come Ibn Khuzaymah, Salaf, born in 223, best generation of Islam. We take aqidah from these great imams. He said as well, قَدْ عَلَّمْنَا الْجَلِيلِ, meaning Allah, the great. He informed us, في هذه الآيات, he mentioned all the ayat above, Allah being, you know, the same ayat that Ibn Qudama mentioned, آمنتم من في السماء, and the others, يا عيسى إني متوفيك ورافعك إليك, and هو القاهر فوق عبادي, all the verses about Allah being above His creation. And he says after, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala taught us in this ayat, أن ربنا فوق ملائكته, that Allah is above His angels, وَفَوْقَ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ, above what is in the heavens, وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ, and above what is in the heavens, from مِنْ دَابَةٍ وَعَلَمْنَا أَنَّ مَلَائِكَةَ يَخَافُونَ رَبَّهُمْ مِنْ فَوْقِهِمْ, and He has informed us that the angel feels the law that is above them. وَالْمُعَتِّلَةَ زُعْمُوا أَنَّ مَعْبُودَهُمْ تَحْتَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ, and the Mu'attila, those who denies Allah's attributes, they claim that the ma'bud, meaning the object of worship, divinity, is below the angels. And then he said, تعرج الملائكة والروح إليه إنما يعرج شيئا من أسفل إلى الأعلى. You see, he said about this verse, he says that it, after quoting the وَتَعْرُجُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ وَالرُّوحُ إِلَيْهِ, meaning the angels and the soul, meaning Jibreel, ascend to him. إِنَّمَا يَعْرُجُ شَيْءٌ مِّنْ أَسْفَلِ إِلَى الْأَعْلَى. It is known in Arabic language that it's only from the bottom to the top that you ascend, to the front and fork above. لا من أعلى إلى دون, not from the bottom to any other direction. وأسفل فتفهموا لغة العرب ولا تغالطوا. He said, know the Arabic language and do not be mistaken. So he's saying that the rising of the angel is from bottom to top, and he's criticizing those who deny these verses. Then we will read further in Kitab Tawheed. Same. He quotes the verse, يا هامان ابن لي صرحا لعلي أبلغ الأسباب أسباب السماوات فأطلع إلى إله موسى. Pharaoh saying to Haman, build me a tower so I will reach the heavens, the limits of the heavens, and so I can see the Lord of Musa. And he said, Pharaoh alayhi la'natullah. And for Ibn Arabi, he died upon belief. I mean, Pharaoh, na'udhu billah. فرعون عليه لعنة الله يأمر ببنائه سرح فحسب أنه تلا إلى أنه يتلع إلى إله موسى. وفي قوله وإني لأظنه كاذبا, and in his saying of Fir'aun, I believe him to be liar, دلالة على أن موسى قد كان علمه أن ربه جل وعلا على الفوق. And he said the saying of Pharaoh, I believe him to be liar, is clearly showing دلالة upon the fact that Musa قد كان علمه, that Musa informed him that his Lord Jalla wa Ala is above and A'la wa Fawq. So this is the Hafiz ibn Khuzaymah. These people, they preserve the Sunnah, they preserve our deen. This is what we're Salafi, we're Ahlul Hadith. We attribute our nisbah to these Muhaddisin, to these A'imma, Ahmad, Shafi'i, Malik, Ishaq ibn Rahu, and all others, Lays, and all others, we attribute to them. We're Salafi, we're Ahlul Hadith. Their understanding is our understanding. Then he mentioned the hadith of the Jariyah. فَاعْتِقَ فَإِنَّهَا مُؤْمِنَةٌ. So this is enough to show that the creed of Ibn Qudama in this short reply. So after seeing, I have to see Hafiz Ibn Abdul Bar al-Maliki. Obviously, I've taken because I don't have the Tamheed with me, so I have translated I have the translation of our brother Abu Rumaysa of Tamheed, and he said in his Tamheed, I'm just going to quote some few quotes from it. Under the hadith number 8 about Allah descending to the lowest heaven, Hafiz ibn Abdul Bar, one of the highest authority in the Maliki school and one of the great muhaddis, the Bukhari of the West, he says there is evidence in it that Allah is fi sama, meaning over the heaven, over the throne, ala al-arsh, above the seven heavens, fawqa. Is said by the Jama'ah, and this is the proof against the Mu'tazila and the Jahmi, and the saying that Allah is in every place, not over the throne. Then he quoted all these verses that have been quoted before. Oh Jesus, I will take you and raise you, and all the others. And he said from the right of the words is that of Allah, meaning the words of Allah, that they be taken upon the literal meanings, ala haqiqatihi, until the Ummah is agreed that what is meant is the metaphorical meaning. Where there is no way to follow what is revealed to us from our Lord except by the way. And the speech of Allah is directed towards its most famous and obvious meaning. Meaning is upon the apparent meaning. And if all the claims of metaphors were allowed for every claimant, then nothing would be established from the action of worships. And it befits Allah that He speaks only with that which the Arab understand according to the constraint of the speech, from what is correctly understood by the listener. And istiwa is known in the language and understood as ulu, meaning highness, and rising above, and something established, and settling, istiqrar fihi. So he said the meaning of ulu, as mentioned in the Arabic language and the Salaf, is istiqrar. And Ibn Abdul Bar said, and istiwa is istiqrar in highness, he has settled in being high. And then he mentioned from Arabic language that meaning of istiqrar is right. And then he mentions the hadith of Jariyah. He said first that when the people have the difficulty, when a matter concerns them, that difficulty befalls them, Ibn Qudama said the same, they raise their faces to the heaven, they raise their hands to the heaven, seeking succor from Allah. They don't seek succor from Ghaus, they seek succor from Allah, min Ghaus Abdul Qadir or any other, their Lord. And this is the common among the general masses as well as the elite. And the Prophet said to the slave girl whose master wished to free her if she was a believer. So the Prophet tested her, asking her, where is Allah? So she pointed to the heaven. And he said, who am I? She said, you are the messenger of Allah. I said, free her, she's a believer. So it sufficed the messengers from her raising her face to the heaven, and was content with that, requiring nothing else. So you can see the speech of the great scholar Ibn Abdul Bar. All the Maliki scholars praise him and revere him, unlike the late misguided Asharis and Kothari and Jahmi. Al-Baghawi, great Shafi scholar, he's got his tafsir and Mishkat Masabi. Masabi Sunnah, he first gathered it, then Hafiz Tibrizi added to it in his Mishkat Masabi, and then Mullah al-Qari interpreted Mishkat Masabi. So he's a great muhaddis, he's a great mufassir, and he wrote in his tafsir, I don't have, but I will try to get it for the next refutations of his tafsir, so people can see clearly the mazhab of the Salaf. Page 280. What Hafiz Zahabi gathered from his saying in his Ulu. He says, قال Imam Muhyi السنة أبو محمد الحسيني بن مسعود البغوي الشافعي صاحب معالم التنزيل the tafsir معالم التنزيل. He said ثم استوى على العرش قال الكلبي ومقاتل استقر وقال أبو بيدة سعيدة, meaning he established the meaning of istiqrar, settling upon. And he said, and the Mu'tazila, they interpret istiwa to mean istila. And he said, Ahl Sunnah, they say istiwa ala al-arsh sifatullahi bila kayf, yajibu iman bihi, it is an attribute of Allah, bila kayf, meaning we do not do the kayf. So he mentioned the meaning of istiqrar. So they did not say we do not know the meaning of istiwa, rather they explained it by the words ulu, istiqrar and others, settling above. Inshallah, if we have time, we will see it from the Kitab Sifat of Daraqutni. I'm going to quote it quickly. After mentioning all the attributes of the hands, the foot, and all of the other attributes, he said at the end that حدثنا محمد بن مخلد حدثنا عباس بن محمد الدوري قال سمعت أبا عبيد القاسم بن سلام. He narrates from Abu Ubaid Qasim Salam, a great Imam of the Salaf, that about this hadith of the foot and about the Allah laughing and the others. He said, فقال هذه أحاديث الصحة, this ahadith are authentic. حمل أصحاب الحديث والفقهاء بعضهم عن بعض. The scholars of hadith and fiqh have narrated from each other's. وعندنا حق لا شك فيها, and they are true for us, there is no doubt about it. But if it ولكن إذا قيل, but when it said كيف وضع قدمه, how did he put his foot, وكيف ضحك, and how did he laugh, we say ولا نفسر هذا, we do not do tafsir of it, meaning of what? Of the كيفية, كيف. You see, he did not say, we do not say the meaning is a note. He say, if someone asks her, how did he put his foot and how did he laugh, we say we do not tafsir of it, and we have not had anyone doing tafsir. So this also shows that the Salaf, what they denied was the kayfiyah, like Ibn Qudama and the others. Ibn Rajab said the kayfiyah, Abdul Qadir Jilani, they said without kayfiyah, they use the word kayfiyah. They didn't say the meaning is unknown, and they put all these attributes together, hand, foot, knowledge, hearing. So if you said they meant tafwid, then you say, like the Jahmi, Allah doesn't see, Allah doesn't hear, Allah doesn't speak, I don't know what it means, na'udhu billah. And he's put the qadam with the laughing. So, and Daraqutni used this rule for all the attributes, you know, of laughing, of all other attributes he quoted before. So you have to say that if he did the tafwiz of Som, Daraqutni, he should have done tafwiz of all the attributes he quoted in his book. This narration is totally authentic, and in his this isnad of Abu Ubaid Qasim is authentic, and also Bayhaqi narrated in his Asma wa Sifat from the way of Abu Shaykh, from Abu Ubaid ibn Qasim Salam, and Al-Kawthari in his notes on Asma wa Sifat of Bayhaqi, he said about Abu Shaykh, Hafiz Abu Shaykh, the author of the book Azama, he said he's mutakallim fihi, meaning he's spoken about, which is Hafiz. Then he says Hafiz Abu Ahmad al-Asal from his country weakened him, and he was leaning towards Tajsim. Na'udhu billah. He's saying Abu Shaykh, the great muhaddis, was leaning towards Tajsim. And this, first of all, he's not mutakallim fihi. Hafiz Zahabi has got a book about narrators who are spoken about, and yet people were mistaken about he didn't mention, nobody mentioned Ibn Hajar, people doing jar of him. Rather, they describe him as a great Imam, Hafiz, Zahabi and others. As for his saying Hafiz Abu Ahmad al-Asal from a country weakened him, this Muallimi Albani and other scholars said we have found it nowhere. And the Saudi scholar Sulaiman Sani from the Lajna Daima, he went many times to meet Kawthari in his house to ask for the reference. Why did Hafiz al-Asal, the great Hafiz, weaken Hafiz Abu Shaykh? And he said Kawthari never gave him the reference. And this shows that Kawthari is a fabricator. Zahabi said about Abu Shaykh, a person of the Sunnah and Ittibah. And what is totally ridiculous is Al-Kawthari says about Hafiz al-Asal that he was also leaning about, he quoted him among Mujassim as well. Na'udhu billah. And what is even Hafiz Ahmad ibn Mohammad ibn Siddiq al-Ghumari in his book against Kawthari, Rad al-Kawthari, he says he weakens Hafiz Abu Shaykh a few pages after he quotes a saying of Abu Shaykh, a saying of statement of Ja'atali against someone else, but he used the kunya of Abu Shaykh. And he said, what is this deception and talbis? So on page 86 of 87 of the same book Ta'nib of Kawthari, after weakening him and saying he was being weakened, Hafiz Asa weakened, he used Abu Shaykh's statement showing his deception. A few pages, it's like you weaken him, and a few pages after he's trustworthy and you take his saying. So this shows Zahid al-Kawthari was playing with the deen. And he's the one behind insulting all the scholars of Tajsim and saying they had an evil creed. And unfortunately, Deobandi, because they praise him, Binori introduced his maqala, they're influenced by such kind of thoughts. So Sakhawi and Zahabi relied, Sakhawi in their books on Jahr wa Ta'dil, they relied on Abu Shaykh's statements on Jahr wa Ta'dil. And even Abu Ghuda, who has edited many books of Sakhawi and Zahabi, he did not object on Zahabi and Sakhawi. Abu Ghuda, the student of Zahid al-Kawthari. So this shows that Hafiz Kawthari to reject such hadith of Abu Ubaid Qasim bin Salam, that how did Allah put his foot? We don't know the kayf, and we have not heard anyone doing kayf of it. Kawthari tricking to deny them by lying and inventing upon the Salaf. So this is the reality of the people. Now we're going to see that after Muhammad Yasir said, if we can take these attributes, meaning hand, eye, meaning if we take these attributes and meaning the hand, the eye, in a literal meaning, automatically a person will form a body for Allah. So he's saying that if you take the meaning of hand, eye in a literal meaning, automatically you will form a body for Allah. Now I have the statement of, which I already quoted in my lecture against Mumtazul Haq, of Imam Tirmizi in his Sunnah. We take our deen, we're Ahlul Hadith, and proud of being Ahlul Hadith. We take our creed. So Imam Tirmizi, said in his Sunan Tirmizi in the chapter for the Sadaqah, after mentioning the attribute in which mentioning Yamin, meaning the right hand of Allah, he said after, هكذا روي عن مالك وقال غير واحد من أهل العلم في هذه حديث وما يشبه هذا من رواية من صفات. He said more than one person of knowledge said about this this hadith and resembling hadith about the attributes, like the nuzul of Rabb Tabarak wa Ta'ala kullu laylatin ila sama'i dunya, like the descent of Allah every third of the night. قال قد تثبت رواية في هذا. The narrations about this are established. نؤمن بها ولا يتوهم. We believe in them and we do not create doubt about them. ولا يقال كيف, and we do not say how. So he said it's the kayfiyah which is unknown. He said هكذا روي عن مالك بن الناس وسفيان بن عيينة وعبد الله بن المبارك وعبد الله بن المبارك. He said this is how it is narrated from Imam Malik, Ibn Sufyan ibn Uyayna and Ibn al-Mubarak. أنهم قالوا في هذه الأحاديث, they said about this ahadith, أميروها بلا كيف, read them بلا كيف, meaning without knowing how. وهكذا قال أهل العلم من أهل السنة والجماعة, and this is the saying of أهل السنة والجماعة. أما الجهمية, as for the Jahmiya, فأنكرت هذه الروايات, they denied these ahadith. وقالوا هذا تشبيه, they said this is tashbih, meaning this entail anthropomorphism. وقد ذكر عز وجل في غير موضع من كتابه اليد والسمع والبصر. فتأولت الجهمية هذه الآيات ففسروا على غير ما فسرها أهل العلم. وقالوا إن الله لم يخلق آدم بيده. وقالوا إن معنى اليد هنا القوة. So he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned in many places of his book the attributes of hands, sam' basar, listening and seeing. Look, like all the other scholars, Qudama, Abdul Qadir Jilani and Abdul Ghani Maqdisi, they put the attributes of hand, foot with the attribute of hearing and seeing. You know, if they did tafweez of yad, would you say that they didn't know what the Sam and Basar means? Only a fool would say such. And he said the Jahmiya did ta'wil of these verses and they explained them for Fassaruha in a way other than the people of knowledge explained it. And they said Allah did not create Adam with his hand, and they said the meaning of hand here is quwa, the power, the strength. And they said, وَقَالَ Abu Ishaq ibn Ibrahim, meaning Ishaq ibn Rahawayh, one of the great Imam. إِنَّمَا يَكُونُ تَشْبِهِ إِذَا قَالَ. The tashbih is only, إِنَّمَا يُفِيدُ الْحَصْرِ. You see, is only, tashbih is only, إِذَا قَالَ يَدُّكَ يَدٍّ. The hand is like my hand. This is Abdul Ghani Maqdisi as well said this before. The hand of Allah is like my hand, or mithlu yadin, or like my hand. Or sam'un ka sam'i, his hearing is like my hearing, or mithlu sam'a. فإذا قال سمع كسمع أو مثل سمع, you know. فهذا تشبيه. This is anthropomorphism. This is attributing a body. If you say Allah hears like I hear, Allah listens like Allah sees like I see, Allah speaks like I speak, this is anthropomorphism. And likewise, if you say a hand like my hand, this is anthropomorphism. أما إذا قال كما قال تعالى يد وسمع وبصر. But when someone says the hand, the seeing and the hearing, ولا يقول كيف ولا يقول مثل سمعه, and he does not say how Allah's listening and hand is, and he does not say like my seeing, فهذا لا يكون تشبيها. This is not anthropomorphism. كما قال تعالى في كتاب ليس كمثل شيء وهو السميع البصير. So would you, brothers and sisters, choose the saying of Ishaq ibn Rahawayh or the saying of Mohammad ibn Yasir that believing in hand means you will make a body in your mind? So it's upon you to choose. I'm merely quoting. You see, I can't force you. you have to choose between the Imam of the Salaf, the great Imam Ibn Qudama, Abdul Ghani Maqdisi, all these scholars, Ibn Rajab, and all the Salaf, Baghawi, Ibn Khuzaymah, Ibn Abdul Bar, you have to choose between them and between the late scholars, those who follow Ibn Arabi, Ilm al-Kalam and Falsafa, Ibn Sina. Ibn Arabi, I've quoted you, he said Abu Bakr will be under my banner in his book, Anqa Maghrib, the Phoenix, I mean, I don't know what is the exact name of Phoenix, I mean, they give it a name in English, but a mystical bird on the mystical mountain Qaf. I mean, it's all khurafat and fairy tales. I mean, may Allah protect us from such creed, but take the creed from the good books of the Salaf, Sunan Tirmizi, Sahih Bukhari, Abu Dawud, and don't take from Fusus al-Hikam and the book of Ahlul Kalam. The Salaf forbade and cursed the people who learn Ilmul Kalam. Now let's see Sunan Tirmizi. Ashraf Ali Thanvi has an explanation of Sunan Tirmizi. It is Taqrir Tirmizi by his student. It is Nazar Sani. It has been checked by Muhammad Taqi Usmani, one of the favorite of the Deobandi. So what did Ashraf Ali Thanvi, it is published by Darat Alif Ashrafiyah, page 189 and 190. So after mentioning this, what I've quoted before, the saying of Imam Tirmizi, he said, it is his student who gathered this saying of Ashraf Ali Thanvi, Taqrir Tirmizi, from his teaching, and it has been agreed anyway by Mufti Muhammad Taqi Usmani. So the student who gathered, he said, Maulana Sahab farmate hain, कि मौलाना साहब अशरफ अली थानवी said, बहुत से इल्म ये फरमाते हैं कि इन हदीसों को अपने ज़ाहिर पर रखनी जाए, यानी यूं कहा जाए कि अल्लाह ताला के हाथ भी हैं और पैर भी हैं और आंख भी हैं, सब चीज़ों को, मगर हम उनकी कैफियत से आगा नहीं. He said many people of the knowledge said these attributes of hand, foot and eye यानी यूं कहा जाएगा कि हाथ, I mean, some people of knowledge said that we should say that Allah has a hand, has a foot and an eye, मगर उनकी कैफियत से आगा नहीं, but we do not know the कैफिया. See, the कैफिया. Even Ashraf Ali Thanvi said, so some people of knowledge said that Allah has a hand, has a foot and has an eye, but we don't know the कैफिया. जैसे खुदा बेमिसल है, Allah has no similar, और जैसे उनकी ज़ात का कमा हक़ वो इदराक नहीं हो सकता, nobody can comprehend Allah's essence. And likewise, it is impossible to comprehend this attribute in sifat का इदराक महल है. और सलफ सालिहीन और उलमा मुतक़द्दिमीन का यही मज़हब था, meaning this pious ancestors and the ancient scholars, this was their mazhab. You know, to believe that Allah has a hand, has a foot, but we don't know the kayfiyah. And then he said, और जहमिया जो कि फ़िरक़ा इस्लामिया है, वो इन सब उमूर की तावील करते हैं. The Jahmiya, which is an Islamic sect, does तावील of this sect. मसलन यदुल्लाहि फ़ौक़ अयदीहिम से मुराद क़ुव्वत है. He said the meaning of hand in this verse, Allah's hand is above their hands, is power. और मुताखिरीन मुब्तदीन का मज़हब इख्तियार किया है. And he said the late scholars opted for the mazhab of these innovators. And he said एक ख़ास ज़रूरत से, meaning because there was a need for it, because else there was similitude with the Christians and other excuses. So what did he say, Ashraf Ali Thanvi? I will read again. मौलाना फरमाते हैं कि अहले फरमाते हैं कि इन हदीसों अपने ज़ाहिर पर रखी जाएं, यानी यूं कहा जाएगा कि अल्लाह ताला के हाथ भी हैं और पैर भी हैं और आंख भी हैं, इन सब चीज़ों, मगर इनकी कैफियत से आगा नहीं, जैसे कि खुदा बेमिसल और जैसे इनकी ज़ात का हक़ को इदराक नहीं किया जा सकता, उनकी सिफ़ात का इदराक भी बहाल है. और सलफ़ सालिहीन और उलमा मुतक़द्दिमीन का यही मज़हब था. और जहमिया जो एक फ़िरक़ा इस्लामिया है, वो इन सब उमूर में तावील फरमाते हैं. मसलन यदुल्लाहि फ़ौक़ अयदीहिम से मुराद है क़ुव्वत कहते हैं. और मुताखिरीन ने इन मुब्तदीन का मज़हब इख्तियार किया, meaning the late scholars, they chose the mazhab of these innovators. And this, he said that the ta'wil of the Jahmiya the hand of Allah to mean the power is the ta'wil of the Jahmiya, and late scholar chose it, meaning among the Ashari Maturidi who chose. So Ashraf Ali Thanvi told you the truth is you're a Hakim al-Ummah, that the Salaf did not do ta'wil of these attributes, and it's the late scholars who did it, and they followed the Jahmiya who said this. Now after this, Muhammad al-Mufannad, the creed of the Deobandi elders, all the elders have signed this book. The book is of Khalil Ahmad Saharanpuri, but it has the signature of the main Deobandi scholars. In the 14 chapters about the attribute, he said, قولنا في أمثال تلك آيات أن نؤمن بها ولا يقال كيف ونؤمن بالله تعالى منزه عن صفات مخلوق وعن سمات النقص والحدوث كما هو قد. Yeah, I think that's and I mean from our Imam. So he's saying, हमारा मज़हब ये है कि हम ईमान लाते हैं उनकी कैफियत से बहस नहीं करते, यकीनन जानते हैं कि अल्लाह सुब्हानहू व तआला मखलूक के वस्फ से मुनज़्ज़ह है. So he's saying that I was saying on the attributes, and we believe in them, نؤمن بها ولا يقال كيف, and we do not say how. So the kayfiyah is unknown, and we believe that Allah is purified from the attributes of the creation. Okay. Then he said, وَمَا مَقَالَ الْمُتَأَخِّرِينَ مِنْ أَئِمَّتِنَا, and what the late scholars from our Imam said, في تلك الآيات, about these verses, يؤولونها بتأويلات صحيحة سائغة في اللغة, meaning as for the what our late Imam said, among the their extrapolation, correct and permissible extrapolation in the filugha, in the language, وشرع, and the Arabic language, بأنه يمكن أن يكون المراد بالاستواء استلاء, meaning that it is possible that the meaning of istiwa, rising, is istila, Allah conquering the throne. ومن اليد القدرة, and from the hand a power, إلى غير ذلك تقريبا إلى الأفهام القاصرين في حق فحقنا أيضا عندنا. He said this for us is also truth. So he said what our late scholars did from ta'wil of istiwa to istila, meaning conquering, Allah conquered the throne, and his hand means his power. He said, and they use this ta'wil because the people who have defective intelligence cannot understand this. فَحَقٌ أَيْضًا عِنْدَنَا, this is also truth for us. So we can see that the major Deobandi scholar like Mohammad Yasir said, we follow the Salaf. No, you follow according to your scholar, you follow the ta'wil of you also follow, obviously, the Deobandi school of thought, some of them did ta'wil, some of them did tafwid, meaning we don't know what the meaning is, but many of them did ta'wil, and you have to say to the people like Ashraf Thanvi, this ta'wil are the ta'wil of the Jahmiya, and it's the ta'wil of the late scholar, and we will see after these other ta'wilat of the same ta'wilat that Imam Tirmizi said, this is the saying of the Jahmiya, hands mean power, they say for us it is permissible. Na'udhu billah. What the Salaf say, it is the meaning of the Jahmiya, a sect that the Salaf condemned and some did takfir of them. They say it is permissible to say that for this. Now I have printed from the online version of the Ma'arif al-Quran of Mufti Muhammad Shafi Usmani, the father of Maulana Taqi Usmani. It is available online, 8-volume English PDF. It's already translated into English. He said in Surah Sa'ad about the verse in which Allah said, Lima khalaqtu biyaday. When Allah said to Iblis, why you refuse to prostrate to the one I created with my hand? And we can see Maulana Mufti Shafi Usmani did the ta'wil of the Jahmi and the Mu'tazila. He said, after saying, okay, there is a consensus among the majority of the Muslim Ummah that hands do not mean it's of page 539 of in Surah Sa'ad. So he said that The hands do not mean that Allah Ta'ala has hands as human beings do. Okay, we agree. The reason is that are absolutely pure and free from the need of body active limbs. Okay. Therefore, it means the power and control of Allah, and that the word yad is commonly used in Arabic language in the sense of power. And then he mentioned this ta'wil. Therefore, the verse means I created Adam with my power. For that matter, everything in this world owes its creation to nothing but the divine power. But when Allah intends to manifest the particular sublimity of something, He will specially attribute it to Himself. And then he said, this is from Tafsir al-Qurtubi. So he did the ta'wil. He said, Allah created with my hand. He said, I created with my power. And this, Ashraf al-Tanvi in his Taqrir Tirmizi told to be the ta'wil of the Jahmiyyah. And we will see from Mullah al-Qari in his Sharh Fiqh al-Akbar, Mullah al-Qari, the same one who declared Ibn Arabi kafir and refuted in detail, the same one who said Ibn Taymiyyah and Ibn Qayyim Jawziyah are from the sense of Ummah and free from Tashbih. He says Fiqh Akbar is a book of Imam Abu Hanifa. It is established to him. I mean, some people discuss about it, but most Hanafis, even the Ubandis now, have done a translation, or I've seen in English of Fiqh al-Akbar with her explanation. I forgot the name, but one of the Maulana had translated it. So I mean, generally, I mean, they studied this book as well, Sharh Fiqh Akbar, so they generally accept its authenticity. So because it's not always the isnad that prove authentic, if it's accepted by scholars and other criterions as well. So Imam Abu Hanifa says in his Fiqh Akbar, وَلَهُ يَدٌ وَوَجْهٌ وَنَفْسٌ كَمَا ذَكَرَ تَعَالَى فِي الْقُرْآنِ. He has a hand, a face, and a nafs, like he mentioned in the Quran. وَذِكْرُ الْوَجْهِ وَالْيَدْ وَالنَّفْسِ فَهُوَ لَهُ صِفَاتٌ بِلَا كَيْفٍ. These are attributes without bila kayf, meaning without knowing the how. وَلَا يُقَالُ. It is not said إِنَّ يَدَهُ قُدْرَتُهُ, that his hand is his power, or نِعْمَتَهُ, or his إِنَّ يَدَهُ قُدْرَتُهُ or نِعْمَتُهُ, that his hand is his power or his favor. لِنَفِي إِبْتَالِ صِفَات, because this means cancelling the attributes, denying it. وَهُوَ قَوْلُ أَهْلُ الْقَدْرِ وَالْإِعْتِزَالِ. This is the saying of the Qadari al-I'tizal, the Mu'tazila. So the tafsir that it is Muhammad San Baul Deobandi who accept this as permissible, and what Mufti Shafi Usmani wrote, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, it is the ta'wil of the saying of the Mu'tazila and the Qadariyah. ولكن يده صفته بلا كيف. But his hand, it is his attribute, and we don't know the kayf. وغضب ورضاه صفتان وصفته بلا كيف. So his hand, his anger, you see, he put all these attributes together. So if you do ta'wil, you said here of hand he did tafwid, so Allah is not angry and He's not satisfied. Satisfaction for you, the Tahawi said that it is true attribute of Allah, his ghadab and his anger and his satisfaction. So Mullah al-Qari, he said, ولكن يده صفته بلا كيف أي بلا معرفة كيفيته, without the knowledge of its kayfiyah. كعجزنا عن معرفة كنه بقي صفاته فضلا عن معرفة كنه ذاته, like our impossibility to know the rest, the reality of the rest of his attributes. So what to say about the reality of his essence? So the hand for him is like all other attributes: seeing, hearing, speaking, life, nafs. You see, nafs, wajh, yad. If you do tafwid of yad and wajh, you should, what about nafs? And Mullah al-Qari said like all the attributes. And then he mentioned from Hanafi scholars, from Usul Bazdawi, Kala Fakhr al-Islam fi isbat yad wal wajh haqqun indana, ولكن معلوم بأصله متشابه بوصفه ولا يجوز إبطال أصل عن وصف بالكيف. He quotes Fakhr al-Islam al-Bazdawi in his Usul al-Bazdawi. He said we do not do interpretation, ta'wil of ghadab and rida, but to intent of vengeance and desire of giving a favor. And then he mentioned Fakhr al-Islam Amin al-Bazdawi, al-Bazdawi, and he blamed the Mu'tazila for denying these attributes of hands and others. And this is also mentioned by Shamsul Aima Sarkhasi. We will mention, inshallah, in detail further the saying of Bazdawi and Sarkhasi. But here, I have mentioned the saying of Mullah Liqari. And he mentioned, after mentioning other attributes, فَيَجِبُ أَن يُجْرَى عَلَى ظَاهِرِهِ, they should be taken upon the apparent meaning, وَيُفَوِّضُ أَمْرَ عِلْمِهِ إِلَى قَائِلِهِ. And he said we should tafwid of the matter of the knowledge, not the meaning, the matter, meaning يُفَوِّضُ أَمْرَ عِلْمِهِ, meaning the kayfiyah, like he said before. So he said they should be taken ala dhahiri, upon the apparent meaning, وَيُفَوِّضُ أَمْرَ عِلْمِهِ, not ilmihi. He said the amr, the matter, and before he said the kayfiyah. So here it is clear that what should be referred to Allah is not the meaning, but the kayfiyah, because he said they should be taken upon its apparent meaning, and before he said أي بلا معرفة كيفيته, and like our impossibility to know the reality of the other attributes, meaning all attributes. So the meaning of all these scholars is clear. So inshallah we'll stop here, and then in a second part, inshallah, I will refute the claim of anthropomorphism from Majmu Fatawa and others. But I will just tell about the sifat of hand and others. The book Irshad of Juwaini, translated into English, Al-Juwaini on page 86, he says about the two hands, the two eyes, and the face. Even the early Asharis like Baqilani and Bayhaqi, they established this. It's only the late Asharis who denied them. And the early ones, they established it like the others attribute hearing, seeing. So if, they established in the same manner, the hand and the face, as they established hearing and seeing. But Juwaini, he refused. He's a late Ashari, he refused the early Asharis. He says certain of our masters maintain that the two hands, the two eyes, and the face are proper attributes of the Lord, of the Lord God, and that is proven by tradition rather than rational proof. But what is correct in our view is that the hands should be constructed as power, the eyes as vision, and the face as existence. Those who affirm that these attributes are determined by tradition hold also that they are additional to the ones indicated by reason, adduced, for example, as the statement of God in the reprimanding Iblis for refusing to prostrate himself before Adam. What prevents you from prostrating yourself before what I created with my own hands? According to them, there is no way to take the hands as meaning power, because all originated things are inventions that the exacted God created by means of his power. In construing it like this, it loses its specific implication in this case. Then he refuted them, but he said the first one they refused to say it has no way to extrapolate hand to power. And then he said at the end, after arguing with the early Asharis, those of our colleagues who prefer to affirm these attributes on the basis of the literal meaning of this verse are forced as consequence of the argument to make attributes in their adherence to the literal sense out of sitting on the throne, coming, descending, and having, and other attributes, you see, having a side. But if allegorical interpretation is permitted for the items where it is generally agreed upon, it is not an unreasonable method to apply for those who have mentioned. So basically he's saying to them that those who take the literal meanings of this verse, he's blaming them that why you don't take the literal meaning of the other verses of the throne of Allah's coming and descending and other attributes. So you see, he's showing, he's contradicting them that basically these people have no rules about the name, and it's because of the ilm al-kalam that they reject this. Even Abu Qasim al-Qushayri, who was from the early Asharis, in his Risala, a book of Sufism, translated into English by Sufis, page 15, translated by Rabbi Haris. He says, among the attributes of Allah, the living one through possessing life, the permanent one through possessing permanence, he possesses two hands which are two attributes with which he created exactly what he wills. He possesses a face and essential attributes specific of his being, and which it cannot be said that they hold, that they are he, or that they are. Okay, this is one of the stuff. So he's mentioning, among the other attributes, the willer, the seer, the one speaking, he has two hands where attributes, he's got a face. And these two, he has two attributes with which he creates. So so it means the meaning of known, the meaning is known to them because it's an attribute by which he creates. And it's an attribute put together with the other attribute, the knower, the one speaking, the one seeing. So for them, the Ali Asharis, Baqilani and others, they believed in hand in the same meaning as the others, but Juwayni and the late Asharis, they rejected this. So it is a way to... So inshallah, in the next lecture, I will carry on from this one, and I will explain what Shatibi means. And as well, I will quote all the quotes from the Salaf. Ibn Taymiyyah, what Mohammad Yasir attributed anthropomorphism. And when you read the full text, you see Imam Ibn Taymiyyah the real meaning, and to whom he attributed his saying to the great Imams of the Salaf. So this attribution of evil to Imam Ibn Taymiyyah is actually attributing evil to the Salaf, and this is for the Muqallidin. They say Imam Shafi'i has ignored, that won't be forgiven, and same Imam Malik and Imam Ahmad had the same opinion as Shafi'i. So this is well known from these people. We'll make a dua to Allah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides them. And inshallah, in the second part of this lecture, inshallah, I will refute in detail clarify the statements of Ibn Taymiyyah and others. Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid. Allahumma barik ala Muhammadin wa ala ali Muhammad kama barakta ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim innaka Hamidum Majid.